It's 12 noon. Welcome to the 12 Report. I am Judith Atibi, standing in for Blessings Musugu. The headlines. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has given the federal government a 10-day ultimatum to meet its outstanding welfare demands or face a nationwide industrial action. The federal government, or the Federal Capital Territory Administration, slams a 5 million naira fine on land allottees who converted residential plots to commercial use in select city center streets. And off to Sudan, Al-Fasher in North Darfur region is under intense assault as rapid support forces press their offensive against the army. As always, we have our reporters stationed in different parts of the country as well as outside. We have Afia Hagen joining us live from London, Joshua Emarayi and Sumaya Abubakar from the capital, Abuja, and also here in Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria, we have Israel Iferobo joining us live. We've got the details. Welcome to the 12 Report. And we begin the news with the threat of another nationwide doctor strike. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has given the federal government a 10-day ultimatum to meet its outstanding welfare demands or face a nationwide industrial action. In a communique released on Monday, NARD leaders said the decision followed an extraordinary National Executive Council meeting held virtually on Sunday. The statement, signed by NARD President Dr. Tokpe Oshidare, General Secretary Dr. Oluwashola Odubaka, and Publicity Secretary Dr. Omoha Omobi, criticized the government for failing to honor previous agreements. The association recalled that it had issued a 3-week ultimatum in July, later extended by another 3 weeks to allow further dialogue, all in a bid to maintain industrial peace. However, NARD says no meaningful progress has been made. Among the unresolved issues is the non-payment of the 2024 accoutrement allowance. The doctors also took aim at some state governments, accusing them of neglecting the welfare of medical personnel under their care. But still in Abuja, conversations about equality and inclusion are taking center stage today in Abuja, as policymakers, business leaders, and civil society advocates from across Africa gather to tackle barriers affecting women, young people, persons with disabilities, and marginalized communities. Our correspondent Sumaya Abubakar is standing by live at the venue where key sessions and discussions are already underway. Sumaya, thanks so much for joining us. Let's just ask about the atmosphere and what are some key issues being raised, pertinent discussions happening at this summit.
Good afternoon, Judith. Yes, I am live here at the Gender Inclusion Summit 2025. And currently, of course, I'm standing outside because the event is currently happening inside the hall, which is fully packed. I want to emphasize that it's a Nigerian project, but this event also brought Nigerians and other Africans down to Abuja just to put their voices. Now we have government officials. I cited the Minister of Women Affairs in there. The key stakeholders are talking about inclusion in every aspect. And of course, among the panel sessions that will be had, I was told that the Minister of Education will also be there, because in terms of education, women, girls, and even children, are out of education, because there's been a lot of numbers and percentage that is being told. But then before I dive into the event and currently what is going on, we have someone with me here, Delako Afede, who would be talking to us as the of a member from the community of disability. Please, Delako, I'll step forward a bit. All right, Delako, based on this event that's happening and, of course, with your community, can you walk us through what your concerns are and what you're hoping to achieve from events like this?
unfortunately can't continue with that reportage. That was Sumaya Abubakar live at an event there in Abuja that's discussing about gender and, of course, disability inclusion. Switch gears away from the capital and now to Lagos State, where the government says repairs on the Ogudu-Ifako Bridge inbound island resume today. The project had been suspended over traffic and safety concerns. Commissioner for Transportation Oluwaseun Oshiyemi says a revised traffic plan is now in place. Motorists are advised to use Ojota Slip Road, Ikorodu Road, Bagada or Eko Bridge. The 110-day project began June 28th and is scheduled to end October 15th. And we're now joined live from the bridge is our correspondent Israel Iferobo, who joins me live now. Israel, can you tell us about the repairs? I can see a very smooth, a little bit slow movement behind you. What's the latest? Tell me, what's going on?
Link Bridge here in Lagos State. Recall that on the first phase of this project happened some weeks back, and indeed, like you just read, it began on June 28th, and this is the second phase that is commencing today. If you look just around me here now, you can see that motorists here, they are in traffic because the road has been condoned off for a little bit. The traffic has built up really bad. That's one of the hazards that we face here. I just had a splash of dust all over my face right now, but that's the job. So the cars you see here right now on the bridge, they are trying to navigate all the way from the inter-mainland, Ogudu, coming in from Alapere, all the way to this particular bridge here. And as you can see here, if you can take a good look at this section of the bridge, this is the first part of where the repair work will commence. Where the cars are plying right now is still untouched, but if you pan a little bit here to this area, you can see that the repair work here will commence officially from this particular spot. The road there has been it's been taken off already, and so this is where it will start from, and afterwards it will move on to further down this road for the continuation of the second phase of the repair work. And I must tell you, Judith, that before we could get here today, it took us quite a while, and that is because all the alternative routes leading towards this bridge, it's all being blocked off right now. There are so much vehicles on the road, and that's because of the second phase of the repair work on this bridge that has commenced officially today, Judith.
And you're talking about, the commencement of the works, but also the alternative routes that seem to be tight. What are the agencies? Who are the persons in charge of managing the traffic? Because I don't see any officials behind you. Is there traffic management in spite of the alternative routes?
Well, speaking of traffic management, just around me here now, you may not see any of the officials, but walking down all the way from Ogudu bus stop down to this place, there were lots of them, the police, the last one officials, and even the engineers as well who are working here. They are all on the ground, manning traffic, controlling traffic, ensuring that people do not spend too long at a particular spot, because if that happens, it simply means that we will have a backlog of traffic. Yes, indeed, the officials are on ground, and they are doing their utmost best to ensure that people do not veer off the wrong lane and stay on course as they make use of alternative routes leading up to the island. Judith?
Thank you very much. We appreciate you for coming on. That's Israel Iferobo there, correspondent live all the way from Lagos there, following a construction that has just commenced on a bridge there. Switch gears this time, but still on works and repairs, as the Federal Ministry of Works has commenced urgent repairs on the Shagamu-Benin Bridge, focusing on the Benin-bound carriageway at the Edo-Ondo border. The Minister of Works, David Umeyi, has deployed a team of engineers to fix a visible puncture on one of the bridge's 5 spans. Built in 1981, the bridge is now showing age-related deterioration. Repair works are expected to last about 45 days to allow proper curing before traffic fully resumes. Meanwhile, a permanent reconstruction plan is underway to replace the entire deck slab using modern engineering solutions. You are watching the 12 Report. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to turn to security. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. And now it's time for crime-related stories and security matters. The Delta State Police Command has arrested a 52-year-old woman, a self-proclaimed pharmacist, suspected to be a major drug dealer. Illicit substances valued at more than 80 million naira were discovered at her chemist shop in Afishari community, Ugeli North. Police say several other suspects were also arrested for armed robbery, car theft, and possession of illegal arms and ammunition. News Central's Austin Azu has the details.
The Delta State Police Command, alongside other security agencies, have been intensifying its crackdown on drug traffickers across the state. At the Ugeli Area Command, the Commissioner of Police, represented by the command's spokesperson Bright Edafe, briefed journalists on the latest breakthroughs in the fight against drug cartels and other criminals terrorizing communities.
As you can see behind me, you discover that there are lots of drugs. These drugs you are seeing behind me, they are worth close to 80 million naira. And these are not ordinary drugs. These are controlled drugs. These are drugs that will cry and say that our youths are using to destroy themselves. Drugs that are driving some of our youths mad. Drugs that pushes some of them to go as far as committing murder, like the case we had in Sapele, and also one we presently have in the anti-kidnapping unit where a young man took drugs and used machete to machete the father's head in an attempt to kill him. These are what drugs are doing to our youths. And this is sad because these are also what some persons are using as a source of livelihood.
Police say those arrested also include armed robbers, car snatchers, and other suspects linked to violent crimes in Delta State.
The second on my list is on a particular suspect that has been on the command wanted list. His name is Samson Ugbe, aka Big Man. We had two incidences last year. The one where the wife of an honorable member of the House of Assembly there was an attempt to kidnap her where two of her aides, two mobile policemen, were shot dead. We also have a case where about 180 bags of rice were stolen from a warehouse, of which we went to Ekpan police station and paraded some of the receivers and also showcased some of the rice. And also the robbery at Western Delta University in Ogara. These three cases are all tied to this suspect, Big Man.
Items recovered from the suspects include illicit drugs, firearms, cartridges, and vehicles. Meanwhile, the Delta State government has pledged continued support for security agencies, urging them to intensify efforts to rid the state of drugs and criminal gangs. In Delta, for News Central, Austin Azu.
As corruption continues to pose as one of Nigeria's greatest challenges, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, also known as ICPC, is taking a bold step towards forming an alliance with state governments through communication. This ICPC says that this is timely owing to the fact that the real battle against corruption lies at the grassroots level, notably at states and local government levels. The ICPC is meeting commissioners of information from states so as to bring the campaign against graft closer to the people, integrating them as key players against this menace. Now joining us is News Central's Aishat Salihu, who is at the venue of the strategic engagement and brings us details. Aishat, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the key takeaways at this summit.
Judy, thank you so much. Well, so far, I'm still at the venue of the strategic engagement by commissioners of information across the 36 states of the country, and also the Minister of Information was here earlier, also the chairman of Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences, equally here, amongst other stakeholders, even from the National Assembly, the DG of the NRA represented amongst other stakeholders. And the discussion so far has been the fight against corruption and how it can be taken down to the grassroots, because they have stated that corruption thrives more
at the grassroots level. As much as many people think it's more at the national level, it is more prevalent at the subnational level, and it is time now for it is time now for the ICCC to involve commissioners of information using strategic information management policies, and they have raised concerns so far, calling on the commissioners to engage the people since they serve as the bridge between the government and the people. And part of their submissions earlier involving citizens and public engagement, promoting ethical representation, by imbibing values through schools, religious and cultural institutions, among other calls that they have called on the commissioner. And right now they have broken into the second part of the session, where they will be taking keynote addresses, taking engagement from communication experts that they have invited to speak to these information commissioners on how to carry the people at the grassroots level along in the areas of budget, accountability, and even efficiency, so people know what is going on. Even the Minister of Information earlier talked about the policy of whistleblowing, where they're calling on commissioners of information to ensure that there's also investigative journalism, where people can see transparency and accountability in what government does through these commissioners, and then the people understand what's going on, there's a call for accountability amongst others.
At this point, it looks like, they're sharing, they're pushing part of the responsibility when it comes to craft watch to the state and state governments and local levels. But do you think that the local and state governments are ready to embrace this responsibility to help promote transparency at all levels and, most importantly, at grassroots?
Well, for what we have gathered so far, it is clear that the commissioners of information present here are here to represent their own state, and also they are saying that at the grassroots level, the subnational level, they are ready, their people are ready to embrace this fight against corruption. It's something that is common in the country, and it has to start from the subnational level. So they are embracing this initiative to ensure that the fight against corruption is nipped to the bud.
Aishat, many thanks. We appreciate you for coming on. Aishat Salihu there live in Abuja. Well, still in Abuja, we told you earlier about conversations about equality and inclusion that is taking center stage today in Abuja as policymakers and business leaders plus civil society advocates are gathered to discuss, tackle the barriers against affecting women, young people and persons with disability. Now, joining us live, and now we had Aisha, Sumaya Abubakar earlier join us, but unfortunately we couldn't take her, but we will continue with that reportage. Sumaya, we lost you for a second there, but please, updates from the takeaway.
Judith, of course, we've been battling to get to our audience, our viewers, to let them know on this development. Now, it is laudable from this end. Everyone came to show their support for this. Like I said, of course, earlier, this is the Gender Inclusion Summit. A lot of stakeholders are here. We've seen government representatives. We've seen from the policymakers, of course, stakeholders, people from these communities that have felt marginalized for the longest time. Now, one of the key issues they said is, as much as there's been a lot of activities and fight for, gender and inclusion equality in Nigeria and Africa at large, there's still a lot of gaps that is still in this sector. And the theme for this is about new voices, new approaches for an inclusive society. So this is all about people coming together, calling more people to come together. There's going to be a lot of panel sessions that would be held today. Education is one of them. Poverty pushing for out-of-school children. So far, there is about 18 million numbers that is being cited today, saying a million children that are out of school. We have barriers about poverty, insecurity, and gender. Also, there is disability and conflict. A lot of conflict situation was talked about earlier in this event. So a lot of things like this are the concerns. And we were supposed to talk to someone from the disability community earlier, but because of the network issues, we had to go away from that space, and we couldn't stress her But one of the things that she pointed out is the fact that she's so excited that at a time like this, events like this are happening where people are coming together to push for, equality and inclusion in this country that we are at, because the numbers are still alarming and they still need a lot of help to navigate their life through the society.
Sumaya, we say thank you so much for that update. Sumaya Abubakar, they are correspondent live from Abuja. We switch gears from the capital now to Kogi State, and this time on health, as the Ministry of Health in the state has begun developing its 2028 annual operation plan to advance healthcare delivery in partnership. I take that again, that's 2026, their plan, which is going to be in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Health and Development agencies. The week-long session, inaugurated by Commissioner Dr. Abdulaziz Adams Adeza in Abuja, is designed as a strategic living document to guide health initiatives and monitor progress. Kogi is the first state in Nigeria to align its 2026 health plan with the state budget using the sector-wide approach, or SWAP. The plan focuses on innovative healthcare improvements, including increased funding, technological upgrades, and strengthened collaboration among health officials and partners. Officials highlighted the support of Governor Ahmed Usman Ododo and federal backing from President Bola Tinubu to enhance Kogi's health system. And now to politics. A faction of the People's Democratic Party, loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has presented a list of demands to the leadership of the party through the National Working Committee as part of efforts to restore peace to the troubled party. The faction had met in Abuja at the official residency of the FCT minister, calling on the leadership of the party to respect its position and effect its demand ahead of the upcoming national convention coming up in Ibadan, Oyo State. The former governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, while reading the list of demands, warned that a failure to comply with the request will render the upcoming national convention of the party invalid.
We call on the National Working Committee to urgently conduct fresh, transparent, and inclusive congresses in Ebonyi State and Anambra, in line with the judgments of the courts. 2, that a fresh and legitimate Southeast Zonal Congress should be conducted. 3, that the outcome of the valid and legitimate South-South Congress held in Calabar, Cross River State and recognized by the court be respected. 4, that the Ekiti State Local Government Area Council Congress should be conducted immediately in obedience to the subsisting court judgment. 5, that on zoning of party offices, whereas we agree with the zoning committee's recommendations, which was adopted by NEC, that status quo remains. We further and very strongly hold that there should be no form of micro-zoning for peace and stability within the party.
And now to oil and gas, as NNPC Limited has appointed 2 new executives to strengthen its communications and stakeholder relations. Mr. Andy Ode is the new Chief Corporate Communications Officer, and he brings more than 30 years of experience in oil and gas, advertising and broadcasting. At Nigeria LNG, he led major rebranding and community development initiatives. Another appointee is Mrs. Morenike Ode Adewumi, who has been named Chief Relations Officer, a legal practitioner, a professional with over 25 years in the oil and gas sector, including Shell Nigeria, and she specializes in regulatory compliance and stakeholder advocacy. NNPC says the appointments announced on September 2nd reflects its renewed focus on outreach and regulatory engagement as the industry evolves. The federal government has declared Friday, September 5th, a public holiday to mark Eid ul-Mulad, which is commemorating the birth of Prophet Muhammad. Minister of Interior Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo congratulated Muslims across Nigeria and the diaspora, urging them to emulate the Prophet's virtues of peace, love, humility, tolerance, and compassion. The government also encouraged Nigerians of all faiths to use the occasion to pray for peace, security, and national unity while supporting efforts to foster development. A holiday which is observed in Rabi al-Awwal of the Islamic calendar is strategically or traditionally, celebrated with prayers, lectures, processions, and acts of charity. And now for some business news. The International Labour Organization, ILO, is urging governments, employers, and workers to adopt a systems approach to improve poor working conditions in global supply chains. In a new policy brief, the ILO highlights that micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, that's the MSMEs, in the lower tiers are often held back by systemic barriers like limited access to finance and weak infrastructure. The organization argues that intervention must address these root causes to foster long-term improvement in wages, productivity, and workplace safety. This holistic approach, according to the ILO, can turn supply chains into a gateway for promoting decent work and unlocking new opportunities for MSMEs. The Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, Ayodeji Gbaleyi, has announced a plan to privatize or commercialize 91 federal assets as part of an effort to optimize public enterprises and attract investment. During a media briefing in Abuja, Gbaleyi stated that the process will be handled on a sector-by-sector basis to protect national interest. Out of the 91 firms, 16 are in the oil and gas sector, including refineries. 12 are in agriculture, 20 in aviation, and 28 in other public enterprises. The remaining firms include those in mines, steel, transport, and eco-tourism. According to Gbaleyi, equity in 35 of the firms will be fully privatized, while 57 will undergo partial privatization. He emphasized that the Public Enterprise Act does not impose a deadline for the exercise, which will be a painstaking process to ensure it is done correctly. The exact value of the assets was not disclosed, as advisors are being brought in to assist with the rigorous exercise. And off to Asia, where Asia-Pacific markets mostly fell on Wednesday as investors weighed rising global bond yields and trade developments. China's CSI 300 dropped 0.89%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 0.4% after President Xi Jinping's military parade speech marking World War II's 80th anniversary. S&P Global's China General Services PMI rose to 53 in August from 52.6, indicating a 15-month high. Service activity driven by domestic demand and a rebound in foreign orders. Japan's Nikkei 225 and Topix fell 1.02% and 1.22% respectively, as JGB yields climbed, with the 10-year yield at 1.625% and 30-year at 3.254%. Australia's S&P ASX 200 slid 1.74%, despite Q2 GDP growing 1.8%, beating expectations. South Korea and India are also in the mix in there. And now for some stats on oil prices, as prices eased in Asia on Wednesday but remained near one-month highs. This is supported by the new U.S. sanctions on shipping companies and vessels involved in smuggling Iranian oil. Brent crude fell 19%, or 19 cents, to $68.95 per barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate dipped 16 cents to $65.43. Traders are also eyeing an OPEC Plus meeting on September 7th. And that's going to be next week, Monday, though analysts expect no immediate production changes. Geopolitical risks, including sanctions on Iran, continue to shape the market's risk premium, keeping prices supported. U.S. crude inventories are expected to have fallen by about 3.4 million barrels last week, while soft economic data, including continued contraction in manufacturing, limits upside by weighing on oil demand expectations. You are watching the 12 reports. Still ahead. Over 1,000 feared dead after Darfur landslide. We have the details of this and plenty more just after the break. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Al-Fasher in Sudan's North Darfur region is under intense assault as rapid support forces press their offensive against the army. The United Nations reports that relentless bombardments and drone strikes and ground attacks have hit civilian areas and a nearby displacement camp. More than 300,000 residents are trapped, facing starvation as aid access remains blocked. UNICEF says nearly 40% of children under 5 in North Sudan, or North Darfur, I beg your pardon, are acutely malnourished, making Al-Fasher the epicenter of child suffering in the war. The conflict raging since April 2023 has left the city isolated and humanitarian operations paralyzed. Sudanese authorities, the United Nations, and aid groups are responding to a catastrophic landslide in Darfur that buried an entire mountain village, leaving more than 1,000 people dead. Only one survivor has been found. Relief efforts are underway, but access is severely restricted by the ongoing conflict in the region. Both Sudan's army-backed government and the rival rapid support forces have announced emergency measures, but no ceasefire has been declared. The UN and African Union are urging swift humanitarian intervention, yet operations are slowed by difficult terrain and persistent insecurity. Still in Sudan, the country's army-backed government says there is no evidence of chemical or radioactive contamination in Khartoum. A new health ministry report based on months of failed tests and medical reviews comes after U.S. sanctions were imposed in June over alleged chemical weapons use. The Sudanese government denies the allegation, stating that no mass deaths or symptoms linked to chemical exposure were found. The ongoing conflict between Sudan's army and the rapid support forces has already caused tens of thousands of deaths and displacements, over 14 million people. Both sides remain under international sanctions for alleged war crimes. And now to the U.S., as U.S. President Donald Trump has brushed aside fresh speculations over his health, dismissing the claims as fake news. At 79, Trump is the oldest elected U.S. president. His absence from the public eye, coupled with visible bruises on his hand, swollen ankles, triggered rumors of a serious medical issue. The White House attributed the hand marks to irritation from handshakes and aspirin use, while swelling were linked to a mild vein condition. His doctor also confirmed that he remains in good health. Trump, however, has used the scrutiny to his advantage, sharing images of himself as Superman and attacking Democrats for allegedly concealing Joe Biden's decline before his 2024 exit from the race.
Very active, actually, over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious. Well, it's fake news. You know, it's just it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying, like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, you know, it's Labor Day weekend. So I would say a lot of people know. I was very active this Labor Day. I had heard that, but I didn't hear it to that extent.
It's Wednesday, and that means in the UK, the Prime Minister's questions is on the way. It's a weekly political showdown in the UK House of Commons. Today, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces off with his opposition leader, and that's Kemi Badenoch, trading barbs over new immigration rules and the government's upcoming budget. Well, joining us now is our senior international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Avia, what are the key highlights from today's session?
Well, this was the first session of the new term, the new parliament, as it were, and it's very much back to school on both sides of the House for the Conservatives and, of course, the Labour government. It was really about the economy at the top of Prime Minister's questions. That face-off, as you mentioned, between Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition. The Prime Minister was very proud of a new deal that the UK has signed with Norway over shipbuilding. He seemed very disappointed that Kemi Badenoch wasn't hailing this deal. She was quite adamant in saying that the UK is not facing any growth, even though we are the fastest growing country in the G7. She was talking about borrowing costs, how much they've gone up, and asking the Prime Minister what he was going to do to get them down. She also warned that the country was heading for a crash. The Prime Minister didn't take that very well and said that Kemi Badenoch was determined in talking down the country.
Avia, I want to say thank you. Afia Hagen there, senior international correspondent for News Central, with updates with just the row going on, or rather the debate. I like calling it the debate. The switch gears away from the UK now to Putin-Kim ties, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has thanked North Korea leader Kim Jong-un for backing Moscow's military campaign in the Kursk region. At a meeting in Beijing marking the 80th anniversary of Japan's World War II surrender, Putin praised the trust and friendship between both nations and said North Korea's troop deployment was initiated by Kim himself. Since the war in Ukraine began 3.5 years ago, Pyongyang has sent soldiers and weapons to support Kremlin's forces. Now, Putin commended their role in pushing Ukrainian troops out of Western Russia, calling their efforts courageous and historic.
Хочу отметить, что ваши воины сражались мужественно и героически. 나는 특히 이 자리에서 언급하자고 하는 것은 조선 전사들이 영광성 있게 아주 용감하게 싸웠다는 것을 말씀드리고 싶습니다. Хочу отметить, что мы никогда не забудем тех жертв, которые принесли ваши вооруженные силы и семьи ваших военнослужащих. Прошу передать самые теплые слова благодарности всему народу, корейским народам. Хотел бы отметить, что все эти мероприятия прошли блестяще, на высоком уровне. 조직한 모든 기념 행사들이 아주 훌륭하게 높은 수준에서 진행했습니다. Так или иначе, прямую касается наших стран. 오늘 우리가 기념하게 되는 날짜.
Meanwhile, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russia's Vladimir Putin have joined China's Xi Jinping at a massive military parade in Beijing commemorating 80 years since the since the end of World War II. Xi worked alongside Kim and Putin on a red carpet at Tiananmen Square, highlighting China's central role in an alliance challenging Western powers. The parade displayed China's military strength, including the DF-5C intercontinental ballistic missile, capable of striking targets 20,000 kilometers away. Xi declared China unstoppable and warned the world faced a choice between peace and war. The show of solidarity among the three nations drew sharp criticism from former U.S. President Donald Trump, who accused them of conspiring against the United States. And off to Afghanistan, the Middle East, as shock aftermath. Now, the eastern Afghanistan has been rocked by fresh aftershocks, compounding the devastation of a powerful earthquake that killed more than 1,400 people. In the Kunar province near the Pakistan border, survivors remain stranded without shelter as landslides and blocked roads delay relief. Thousands, including children and the elderly, are exposed to rain and cold as tremors continue. Officials say over 3,000 people have been injured and more than 5,000 homes destroyed. Casualties are also mounting in neighboring Nangarhar province. The crisis has deepened Afghanistan's humanitarian emergency, with aid flows dwindling since the Taliban takeover. The EU has pledged emergency support, while the Red Cross is appealing for $31 million to scale up relief. It was sold in Nigeria as the cheaper, cleaner fuel for the future. But now, compressed natural gas, also known as CNG, is starting to burn more than just carbon. It is burning holes in the pockets of the people. In just a few months, the price of CNG has nearly doubled from 200 naira to 450 naira per standard cubic meter. That's no small jump for a product positioned as Nigeria's budget-friendly alternative to petrol. The government has quietly rolled back CNG subsidiaries, and while car drivers get a discounted rate of about 380 naira, truck operators now pay the full 450 naira, no exemptions. For many motorists who converted to CNG after petrol subsidies were removed, it feels like deja vu, another fuel that promised relief only to become a financial strain. And it's not just about the money. If CNG becomes unaffordable, transporters in Nigeria might even revert to petrol or pass the cost to commuters. Exactly what the switch was meant to avoid in the first place. Industry experts are already warning that rising prices could choke adoption, derail investment, and leave Nigeria stuck in neutral on the road to energy transition. And so for millions of Nigerians battling inflation, the road to cleaner energy must also be a road they can afford to travel, because otherwise CNG may join the long list of good ideas stranded at the pump. The technology is ready, the will is there from what we've seen, but unless the policy holds, even the best fuel can run on empty. And that is your postscript. But first, before we go, we do have our sports guys on standby who's going to give us the sports for In the Game.
Yes, and of course, Judith, it's all about the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. The camp is bubbling right now, and the Super Eagles of Nigeria will be hoping to get a ticket when they come up against Rwanda. I'll tell you more on In the Game.
Oh, of course, we can't wait to see your lovely face as well, Onyechi Obaru. I hope they get the ticket. If not, I'll just keep, reeling on this high from the Super Falcons that they've given me. Well, that's all we can take right here on the 12 reports. Now, do remember they can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on every social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Go TV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Good afternoon.